So I just paused the recording, but then it's running again. You know, if it gets too long, I can't post it on YouTube. So, are there any questions on this though? Okay. Now, one thing that people do when they get this data, you know, after they do a study, let's say, right? You know, they get their results. They like to display their results. You know, they want to present their findings somehow, right? One way or another, that's what they want to do. Okay? Excuse me. So, you know, somehow we want to present that data. Now, with qualitative data, we can do that. I mean, there's different ways of doing that. One way is using what's called a frequency table. Okay? One way is what they call a frequency table. Now, a frequency table, I have an example in the next slide. I mean, you should have that in front of you. Well, you have the notes in front of you, that is. A frequency table is the table with two columns. One column, lists the values of a variable. You know, the possible values of a variable. Like, for instance, maybe, I don't know, favorite color, that kind of thing. Remember, this is qualitative data. But the second category lists the second column, lists the frequency for each value. You know, how many items fit into that. So for instance, if we made, say, if we had a survey, right? We sent it out among students or people, I guess, on campus and asked them what's their favorite color, right? We can use a frequency table to display the results. You know, this many people said red, this many people said blue, this many people said green, that kind of thing. That would be a frequency table. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times people will add another column, a third column that is, which is the relative frequency column. Relative frequency is the frequency divided by the total of all the frequencies. That's what relative frequency is. You know, it's the frequency of each possible value relative to the whole. In other words, you have the frequency for that category or that possible value of the variable divided by the sum of the frequencies. So relative frequency, it could be a fraction, a decimal, or even a percentage. So one example with the favorite color idea, for instance, a teacher could give out a survey to different classes in a school that he or she works at, that she works at. And she basically ends up asking 136 students, you know, what's their favorite color? And this is the data they got. So blue, orange, green, all that stuff. This is qualitative data, notice, right? Because blue, orange, green alone, you know, the colors alone, you can't do arithmetic calculations with. We have a frequency table, though, as you can see. So of all the students, 25 of them said blue, 40 of them said orange, and so on. This is our frequency table. You know, so 40 students said their favorite color was orange. 21 students said their favorite color was green, and so on. Again, these are just data values I made up. Okay. Okay, so in total, you get 136 students, because that's how many students she asked. So now for relative frequency, you could do something like this. If you were to add up the frequencies, you would have 136. And for blue, for instance, the relative frequency is 25 divided by 136. For orange, it would be 40 divided by 136. You know, green would be 21 over 136 and so on. That's the relative frequency. What's interesting about relative frequency is that's actually one way to define probability, but that's a different story. And if you added up the relative frequencies, you would get 100%. You know, that's what would happen. All right. So that's what's happening here. Now, so a frequency table is something you can do. So you can make to represent qualitative data. One can also make what's called a bar graph. There, the idea is, what did I? Oh no, sorry, I got lost in my notes. That's where you have a bar for each category. The height of the bar, okay, indicates the frequency of that category. Okay, so essentially you can actually make this a bar graph from a frequency table. Basically, you have a bar for each category. The height of each bar is the frequency. Okay, I mean, I do right here how you would draw it if you wanted to draw it by hand. You know, you have a horizontal and vertical axis. On the horizontal axis, you would have the different categories, or different values of the variable. You know, like, so for instance, with favorite color, one, you would have blue, another, you would have, in the horizontal axis, you can have orange and green and white and so on. And a vertical axis, you would probably have just numbers for measuring the frequency. And then for each variable, you would draw a bar, which gives you the height, or excuse me, whose height gives you the frequency somehow. Okay. In fact, you would make this from a frequency table. I mean, I don't think you don't always have to make it from a frequency table, but you can. For instance, here, we have the frequency table from before, right? And in Google Sheets, I made this bar graph. And you could see, right, just like I said before, the vertical axis, you have numbers here which give you frequency. Horizontal axis, these are the different values of the variable, which in this case is colored, you know, the qualitative data. So that's what's happening here. And this is something I actually made using Google Sheets. Okay, we're actually going to make that today since I think we have time. Yeah, we do. I mean, in the notes, I wrote out how you actually do this, how you make it using Google Sheets. I mean, you could use, if you want, Microsoft Excel. It's just that with Google Sheets, I know everyone can access that for free. So that's why I figured I'd stick with that. Okay. But this is basically what you would do. The first two steps help you access Google Sheets. That's pretty easy to do. Okay. Then the next few steps, you know, they tell you how to actually make the bar graph in Google Sheets. I mean, you could do it in Microsoft Excel. I honestly don't know I don't remember how to do that. But essentially, you're going to type this data in somehow, and then you have to tell Google Sheets that you want it to make a bar graph. And this is what's happening. That's what these are doing. In fact, I have screenshots, namely, like if you open Google Sheets, you're going to have something, and you get there, you're going to have something like this with the data typed in. Right? Notice one column gives you the colors. The other column next to it gives you the frequencies. It's almost like this is the frequency table entered into the cells. Once you do that, right, you go to chart, as you see here. And then, I mean, this is the chart that came up. This is called a pie chart. We'll get to that later. What you want, though, is a bar graph. It looks like this. I think Google Sheets, if I remember correctly, calls it a column chart. And yeah, column chart, that's what they do. Here I'm just highlighting that data, right? That's what I did. In chart, we go here. You want to make sure you have column chart highlighted. I mean, you could get other charts, as you can see here, but what we want is a bar graph, which for some reason Google Sheets calls it a column chart. So once you get that, as you can see, we get this. Really, the hard part is done. The rest of it is just minor, well, I wouldn't say minor details, I guess, but it's just other details. Basically, if you were to go to, I don't know if it's here, you can see it, customize. Oh, now it is. And then, so again, you click customize here. Then you would go to grid lines and ticks. And then you could just add other ticks, other lines here, so to say. Other grid lines, that's the right word. You know, it's very easy to do. Oh, in fact, let me go through it actually. Let me actually type it out for everyone. Got time. So I'm going to go to Google Sheets now. So let me stop sharing this. Here we go. All right. So we're in Google Sheets. I'm going to click a new one, blank. Okay. See, that's there. So what I'm going to do is type in that frequency table. So we have color, then we have frequency. Right. I think everyone can see what I'm doing, I hope. Yes, you can. So we have blue, 25, 254. Orange, 40. Green, 21. White, 15. See, black is 18. And purple, 17. Okay. Notice also, I don't know if you have Google Drive or not. If you do, that's really good. You get some space for free. It actually saves it for you automatically. That's what it was doing. When something new happens, watch. See, it saves it automatically for you in Google Drive. But now I'm going to click and highlight. Okay. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to go to Chart down here. Now it's making the chart up. See, we got a pie chart, but we don't want a pie chart. I mean, pie charts are nice, but we don't want one. Not yet, at least. So I'm going to click chart type. Okay. We do have column chart down here. That's a stack column chart. That's different. You know, there's many different charts you can get, but I'm going to click a column chart. In suggested, you might get it up here as well. But just in case you don't see it in suggested, you can always scroll down the column down here. And we have our column chart. What about the minor grid lines? Well, again, we go to customize, clicked here. You could also change the titles if you want by clicking on chart and axes titles. If you go to grid lines and text, see, sometimes you can just play around with it. The major grid lines are in there. If I uncheck that, that's gone. We don't want to do that. All right, what'd I do? Oh, here. There we go. You can just leave it on auto. Minor grid lines also. See? You can also change major ticks and minor ticks if you want. You know, other things to do if you want. It's up to you. But that's how you make something in Google Sheets. You know, it's good to check major and minor grid lines so you can see you get the horizontal lines here. Okay. You know, don't be afraid to play around with it and see what happens. You know, sometimes doing that, that's how you learn. So, are there any questions about this? Okay, let me stop the